Hello, my name is Graham O'Connor, and I had a near-death experience 17 years ago. I was 27 years old. The cause of my near-death experience was an accidental overdose of alcohol and a prescriptive drug. Some relevant information around that time: my best friend had died about 6 months prior to this. He had a brain tumor and he was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and was dead within 3 weeks of getting his diagnosis. So it was quite a traumatic time. Also around that time, I was working as a clinician on a pediatric ward, and it'd been a really difficult couple of weeks in that we three children had died unexpectedly, and anybody who died since my best friend had died, I found it quite difficult to deal with. It just brought back all of those memories. So, as a lot of people at that age, I would deal with these difficult feelings by going out and drinking. So I had arranged a night out with my friends just at a local club bar area in South London in Clapham called the Two Brewers. And needless to say, we got drunk, and the more drunk you get, you migrate to the back of this venue, which has a club area. And at the back of the club, my friends managed to get a seated area, which we sat down, and then a friend went to the bar to get a drink. And it was at this point I was offered this very powerful anesthetic, which I took, which you should never mix alcohol with this very powerful anesthetic. And instantly, when I inhaled this, I knew something wasn't right. I was going into systemic shutdown, and I knew my blood pressure was dropping. My peripheral vision started to blacken, and I knew my blood pressure was dropping, and I collapsed very quickly. My friends told me at this time that I rapidly went into respiratory failure. You have your sternocleidomastoid ligaments here, which causes a very distinctive sound called a stridor, which just basically trying to get air into your lungs by causing this very distinctive sound. Now, I was oblivious to all of this because I was instantly transported to a magnificent realm, and I was actually suspended in this air instantly. And I was within this huge coliseum. I was actually suspended between these two humongous columns, and these columns were going as far either side as me as I could see, and then a huge column behind me. I say behind me, I had 360 degrees perception, so I had this perception all around me. There were these stairs coming up to this Colosseum, like 1,000 stairs. It was absolutely huge. The Colosseum was made of this energy and light, and there was also the surrounding area was made of light and energy. But the light there has almost a substance to it, a feeling to it. It's very difficult for NDEs to explain this situation because it's almost a six-dimensional experience that you then have to put into your human 5 to 6 senses. So it's very difficult to get the experience across. The only way that I've learned to explain the light there is like when you're in science class and you have a beam of light that's shown into a prism, and then it refracts the whole rainbow. But within that prism, you've got this beautiful rainbow with the light within it. And that's what the light was there. It was this incredible colors there. Because you think about how restrictive our vision is within the humans. We've got a very small range of color, whereas, in the actual real spectrum, there's up to the ultraviolet and infrared. And so when you take that into account, this gives you some idea of what the color and the light was up there. Now, when I was suspended in the air, I had this incredible presence on my right hand side. I wanted to say I didn't have any physical form as I could see, but there was a presence that was very comforting and protective. And I don't know what that presence was. I couldn't see it, but I could just feel it, whether it was my higher self or part of my soul family, but it was there the whole time I was having this experience. Now, in front of me were these 4 beams of energy. I mean, these were absolutely huge. When you think about the giant sequoias in Yosemite, these massive trees, but these beams of energy were identical looking, but they had very different frequencies. So these beams that were in front of me, beams of energy, I could see hundreds, if not thousands of these energies within my perception going out as far as I could sense or feel. And also these beams were also within the Colosseum behind me. Now, there was this, again, this is where it's very difficult to explain, but it was almost like a thread of light or energy that was connecting all of us together. It was like this galactic spider web that were just connected. And it gave me a real sense of how we are all connected and this one consciousness, really. We're all here having these life experiences as humans. but we're actually just one conscious. And that's when makes me laugh when we judge people, because we're actually just judging ourselves. And often if someone does trigger something within you, or makes you react for some reason, because you're seeing something, it's often a reflection of yourself within that person. It's a really good, useful insight to use next time you're judging someone. So this light beams were all around me, and we were all connected. But the 4 beams that were in front of me, the first 3 were the children that had passed away on the ward on the coming weeks. Now, the communication up there is way beyond telepathy. It's just an understanding and a knowing. I had no specific dialogue at all that I had. There was just the most purest form of communication that you can have. There's no error for misunderstanding. It's just that absolute connection. There was no real reference for these children to their time on Earth. There was a much bigger understanding about their life journey and about what they were, where they'd been, what they were doing. And I also had a sense that there was almost a bit of a message for me to be able to move on and be able to deal with death a little bit better than I was doing. Now, the 4th beam of energy was my best friend who had died 6 months prior to this. And again, there was no physical forms. It was just this magnificent beam of energy. And it's so difficult to explain, because I could just, for whatever reason, I could feel or sense that was who it was. The communication with him was a little bit more different in that, because we had that time on Earth together, I think we did have a closer connection. It was almost like a sense of humor, joking in that he was a total atheist on Earth, and we were in this incredible realm. It's like, what is this place, and how comes, as an atheist, how comes you're here? Now, I didn't get a life review, but I was taken back to one specific memory with my best friend who had died. And I was very fortunate to have been in the hospital bedroom when he died, which is devastating as it is. It's also an absolute privilege to be in the same room as someone when they do pass. Now, my best friend, he was not ready to die at all. He was a young man. He had a great life, a great career. He did not want to die. He was trying to get his radiotherapy head mask fitted to have that treatment, but he died so quickly, he didn't have time to have that, and he wasn't ready to go. Now, I was shown this memory from his perception. So I was actually, at that time, I was shouting up to him saying, just show me a sign that you're okay. But I was shown this memory from his perception. So I was looking down at myself. I could feel all my emotions at that time, my anger towards him, but I could also feel his emotions, and he had just died, but I could feel that he was actually at peace, and he was, comforting and at peace and to what had just happened to him. So it's a very strange situation. There's a process called shared death experience. It's almost, I've had that as a retrospective viewpoint, which again is very difficult to explain, but again, incredible to have this experience. Now, because I'd seen myself in this physical form, it made me then think about my own initial death. Now, I was in this realm, and I'm narrating this in a way that it's chronological, but it's not. Everything just happened at the same time. This is how incredible the conscious is, and displays the limitations of the human brain, because all of this just happened at the same time. But because I had seen myself in that human form, I then had the awareness that, was I dead? How did I die? And I was very at peace being dead, and I was in this incredible realm, very comforted. But I then had the realization that, okay, I had died. Well, how did I die? Was it in the club? And there's no judgment there. The only judgment comes from yourself. And I remember thinking this wasn't an ideal situation to die. And I remember thinking about my family, particularly my parents. And I actually had a vision of my parents in the bed at that time. It was at night time, they were sleeping. But it was that vision that catapulted me back to the earth. Now, when I went to this incredible realm, it was in an instant, but coming back to the earthly realm, it was a little bit slow. And I remember coming through the club area and actually coming through the wooden bar. And then coming through the wood, I could see it in all its greatest intricacies. I could see all the splinters of the wood. I could actually even got a sense of the tree that it used to be. And again, it sounds absolutely crazy, but I got a feel of that. And then my consciousness was in the club area. There was no noise in the club. I couldn't see anybody else. There was just my consciousness, and I could see my body on the floor. My body looked absolutely useless and insignificant as this feeling of who I was in this consciousness. But I did then have this sense of fear, thinking like, well, how was my consciousness going to get back into my body? It wasn't moving into my body. Now, previously, literally seconds ago, I'd just been in this incredible realm, knew I was dead and did not care about it. But now I was in this earthly realm, I don't, crossing the veil. I had all my human emotions and it was petrifying. I can remember it tangibly, the fear that I had by not getting my consciousness into my body. Now, my consciousness was like undulating back to my body and then back into this bar area. And again, I could see the bar in its greatest detail. I could see all the scum that accumulates around the bar area. But again, I had this sense of absolute fear. I'm going to get my consciousness into my body. Now, whether through intentions or will, thankfully, my consciousness did get back into my body. And I sat up. And at this time, that's when all my senses came to me. So the music from the club came on. There's everyone stood around me, the security guards around me. My face was painful because my friends were hitting my face to try to rouse me. And I just sat bolt upright and said, I've just seen Brendan, and everybody knew that Brendan had died. So I looked absolutely mental at this time, but it was a very vivid memory that I took straight back with me. What was quite traumatic about this wake up in the situation was the time that I thought I was gone for. It felt like an incredible eternity. And then to realize that I was only gone for 5 to 10 minutes was actually, I almost caused some post-traumatic stress disorder from that, because it was a transfer or contrast of the time experience that I had. I was absolutely obsessed with this place. I could not stop thinking about it. And I kept thinking, how can I get back to this place? It was so incredible. I thought about, could I do the same process I'd done before? But the return journey was so stressful. I didn't want that to happen either. Now, I was very lucky in that I got some incredible after effects. And you often hear about people that have had a near-death experience, that the two worlds are almost merged for a few months. And some people have this for the rest of their lives, but I just had it for a few months. So the first week of getting back, I was out with my friends and we were just in a coffee shop and my phone was on the table. And it started to ring, and it was my best friend's number that came up, who died 6 months ago. Now, no one had used his phone during that time. In the 3 weeks leading up to his death, he couldn't use his phone because of the brain tumor. So I just assumed maybe it was his partner was using the phone for some reason or giving his phone out. So I answered the phone expecting someone to answer, and there was nothing there at all. And I just knew this was a validation of what I'd seen before. And it was just him to show that, what you saw, that was absolutely real. I kept that connection, that phone open for as long as I could. I just didn't want to close it. I knew that was the validation that it was real. I did close the phone down. I texted his friend and said, have you given Brendan's phone out to anybody, or have you used it? I've just had a call from him. And it's like, no one's used that phone. It's in the drawer at home. It's not been charged for 6 months. So for me, it was just a fantastic validation. I'm very lucky also that my best friend gives me signs all the time in terms of orbs. So for my 40th birthday, I got an incredible orb caught on video, and previous video that I've done talking about this experience, I got some incredible orbs in the background. So that, I think, is just his way of showing that I'm doing the right thing talking about this, because it is it's a taboo subject, still, especially in the profession that I work in. So, I mean, my take-home message for people now after having this experience is just not to take life so seriously. We really are here just to experience as much as we can as humans, the good and the bad, and just to enjoy life and try not to complicate your life too much by taking life so seriously, and just to follow your passions as much as you can by freeing up your time so you can do your creative writing or go into your book clubs or art classes or even sports, so you can follow that passion and light that fire within you. I've got some wonderful messages that I really do live my life by now, just these life lessons, because after going through an experience like this, it does make you question the bigger questions in life, like, why are we here? Why is there something as opposed to nothing? And it really does help you to have these just to formulate your life in a much more balanced and relaxed way. So my take-home message for everybody is just life is a game, enjoy life and make the most of it. Thank you for listening.